For that, joining me now, former Naval Intelligence Officer and Overseer at Stanford Hoover Institute, John Jordan, and national security expert and U.S. Navy Captain Morgan Murphy. Thank you both for joining the Pulse this evening. It's good to see you.
Great to be with you, Rick.
So the president ditched the tariff plan for investment deals, arguing this creates American jobs while keeping pressure on Iran. John, which strategy actually hits Iran harder, and is a 20% tariff a better real-world option?
Well, with regard to the tariff, President Trump, he does these sorts of things, put a marker down, and then he's going to get a better deal out of it. And I think that's classic Trumpian strategy. He's going to get that investment in the United States, and that's going to help us out. It's going to be a great thing. With regard to what's going to work with, it's a combination, a suite of pressures that we're bringing to bear. The economic one, obviously led by the blockade, obviously the sanctions regime being tightened up, the seizing of cryptocurrencies, squeezing the Iranian regime where it hurts, and degrading as best we can, and it'd be interesting to hear Captain Murphy's views on this, degrading as best we can their capabilities along that massive shoreline they have to interfere with shipping. So it's a combination of all of the above to induce behavior change, if not regime change, in Iran.
Well, Morgan, the president is declaring no one has the right to charge a fee for passing through the strait. Is that a statutory reality he can enforce, or is he risking a dangerous naval confrontation here? What are your thoughts on what's happening in the strait right now?
Well, it would be a dangerous naval confrontation if they had a navy, but their navy's on the bottom of the strait right now. They have no ability to project any power in the strait other than drones and missile attacks, which, while still formidable, are not going to stop the U.S. Navy from opening that strait. It's 20 miles long at its narrowest point. I mean, it's a difficult area to patrol. But let's remember who broke this ceasefire. It wasn't President Trump. It was the Iranians. They fired 2 missiles into Emirati cargo ships. This isn't just diplomacy gone awry. This is piracy by a rogue, crazy nation, frankly.
Yeah, it's a really strange behavior, knowing full well they're not allowed to do it, and that it's going to interrupt this ceasefire, and they do it anyway, John.
Yeah. So, Rick, when you peel all the onions away, what's going to decide this conflict right now is who controls the Straits of Hormuz. If the U.S. Navy is able to impose its will, and I believe it will, impose its will in the Straits of Hormuz and make shipping safe, or at least bring the risk to a tolerable level, whether it's along the Omani coastline or through central Straits of Hormuz along the pre-existing shipping lanes. If the U.S. is able to do that and basically force the Iranians to capitulate or force them off of this ability or perception that they're able to interfere with shipping, and that's what it really is perception. They're driving up risk premiums for maritime insurance companies. It's more it's a psyop as much as anything else. But if we're able to resume shipping throughout the Straits of Hormuz from all of the Gulf states, that will probably mean the end of the Iranian regime, because this is their last point of perceived leverage, and it's a wasting asset at that, because oil prices did not really go up. They're still below where they were when President Trump took office, and markets are basically saying, yeah, the U.S. is eventually going to win this. And so Iran is losing that perception, that their mirage of leverage very quickly, and I think that is going to have enormous import in Iranian domestic politics, because then there'll be nothing left. We'll be able to blockade them and basically bring their economy to their knees, which is going to force, at some point, regime change.
I see another red hat, and it says making shipping safe again. Captain Morgan, President Trump is announcing new economic partnerships and a scale back of the U.S. military presence in Iraq, following a meeting with the country's new prime minister. I want you to watch this for a second.
We don't think we need the military there anymore. It's a very big operation. And what we do have is the oil companies are all going in now, and they're doing partnerships with Iraq, and they're getting along very well. The relationship is a whole big relationship where we don't need the military there. We're there to help them. We're there to protect them if need be, but we don't think that's going to be necessary. And their primary, I consider an opponent. They might have considered a friend, but I consider that an opponent was Iran, was a big burden on Iraq because they were the bully of the Middle East, as you know.
Captain, what do you make of this strategy to swap a military footprint for American oil company executives?
You know, President Trump is saying the quiet part out loud that presidents here have ignored for 50 years. And Trump is the first president to really take it head on. We've been fighting all kinds of snakes in the Middle East, but the head of the snake was Iran. And the president certainly knew that taking on Iran would drive up oil prices. He knows it's an election year. He knew all of these things, but he wanted to take out the root cause of all the problems we've been having. If you think back, all the way back to the Reagan and Carter administration, Iran has been using their proxies and sometimes directly attacking American interests across the Middle East. And this president, President Trump, is putting a stop to it.
John, your thoughts on reducing the military footprint in Iraq?
Well, ISIS is kind of a different animal in many ways than Iran. In fact, in the early days of the ISIS wars in the Middle East, Iran was actually fighting ISIS themselves. So the Middle East is a very complicated place. The good news is that we're reducing our footprint in Iraq, and if the Iraqis are for it, that's great. But more to the point, bringing Iraq further into the fold. We're choking off one of Iraq's Iranian proxies there, by the way, because there's now pressure by the Iraqi government to squeeze some of the Shia militias, which have been supporting Iran for a long time, and Iran has actually funded a great deal of. In fact, inside Iran right now, there are Iraqis, Syrians, and other Arabs actually helping the Basij patrol streets in Tehran and other major Iranian cities. So depleted and kind of mistrustful is the Iranian regime of their own security services. That's a real crack in their system, and they're dependent on a lot of these foreign, non-Farsi speaking, but Arab speaking peoples augmenting their own security services. And that's something to watch. But squeezing a lot of the Iranian proxies, whether it's Hezbollah, Hamas, and the ones in Iraq, is great. And opening Iraq to American oil investment is only going to further bring down energy prices, which hurts Iran and hurts Russia as well.
We got to leave it there. John Jordan, Morgan Murphy, it was a pleasure. Thank you both.